assuming one has the proper permits for fire hydrants. If you use a fire hydrant that's been sitting there a while that hasn't been used, is it considered a violation to flush the line free of what appears to be rust and sediment? Sometimes you have to run it for 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah, the city, that is allowed, but you still can't allow mud and sediment and dirt to get in the creek. For example, sometimes we've seen Charlotte Valley Utilities flush a hydrant and they can't let all that high volume water dump right into the creek. They'll sometimes put some measures in place to slow the water down, prevent a lot of erosion in the stream. But that city water from line flushing is allowed to go into surface waters as permitted, but you cannot, in doing that, cause erosion or sedimentation or a lot of grit or mud to go in there with it. Now, superchlorinated, high chlorinated water is not allowed to go into the creek or lake. You've got to dechlorinate it first, but the normal line wash and flushing is.
Any other questions?
Yes, I'm from Gatemore, and we're a chemical manufacturer local, supplying pressure water businesses, and we're making an attempt to have greener chemicals. But mostly what I'm hearing here is some of the don'ts, but you're not giving any guidelines on pressure washers on what the do's are, so that they can select better environmentally friendly chemicals. And because very often your business is low price driven, it's difficult for them to get away from the lower price chemicals, which are the phosphates and acids and things like that, are effective and have been for years. And it's going to take a little bit more to get them to use some of the green chemicals. Even if we can produce it, doesn't mean they're going to be needed.
Did everyone hear that in the back? He's talking about guidance for chemicals, safer chemicals. He's asking that we maybe provide some listings to you about what chemicals are we consider green or better for the environment and safer for the environment.
I mean, we can use D-limonene, we can use soy-based surfactants and solvents, and I think all that will help, but there's little demand for them. The other thing I'd like to look for is some guidance for these people when we take liquid waste and turn it into a solid waste with the oil absorbers, some guidance on how to dispose of them, or the collected grit, because if they just take the grit and dispose of it on the ground someplace, it hasn't helped them.
Well, I think my voice is pretty loud, so I'll just stay here. As far as, you mentioned the green cleaners, and Robert talked a little bit about that. They still have some harmful properties, surfactants, sometimes lower pH. And so you say we mentioned a lot of those. We're still saying if you are using those chemicals, whether they're green or biodegradable or whatever, they cannot go in the storm drain system. But we are giving you some dues as far as how you can discharge them into the sanitary sewer system or through an environmental waste company. They are better for the wastewater treatment plant, as Regina explained. It's a biological system. But as you said, I know sometimes it may be cost prohibitive. You guys are trying to keep costs down in this economy, so I understand that. But we'll try to maybe gather a little more research on what is out there and include some of that in our guidance. But we want to stay away from endorsing certain chemicals. Just be general about it. And then are you going to talk about the solid waste grit issue? Or?
Well, I was going to mention about the biodegradable chemicals, and first to say that you should all use biodegradable chemicals. And green chemicals. That's absolutely the way to go. Even if it costs a little more, you should use it. But that doesn't mean that it's safe to the environment. It's better to the environment. It doesn't mean that it's not going to potentially pollute the environment. And let me explain how that happens. I mean, these substances have compounds in them. When it says biodegrade, they more easily break down in wastewater plants. They more easily degrade. They don't have compounds in them that are resistant to degradation. And as Regina very well explained earlier, that's how a wastewater plant works. I mean, it uses natural processes to break down the organics, which are consumed by the bugs, so they're not carried on downstream. Well, if you take a biodegradable soap, green product, and you dump it in a creek, the creek will try to do what the wastewater plant tries to do. It's a natural process. It'll try to break down those biosolids, the biodegradable products. It'll try to break them down. The organisms in the water will try to consume them. And as they do that, they're using up oxygen. And a lot of times a biodegradable compound, if it's dumped into a creek, through the natural breakdown of that product, can pull the oxygen out of the water, which we all know can kill fish and stress aquatic life. And also that soap carries with it, obviously, bits of dirt and pollutants that end up in that creek and that are released into the water column that causes additional problems. So biodegradable means, yes, it's better, but it's not safe to the creek and to the environment. It's just better. It means it should go into the wastewater treatment plant and it will be better treated because it is biodegradable.
Does the city, let me back up, as pressure washing contractors, when we operate, some of us operate in different counties, different cities, where one city may have a set of guidelines established for the Clean Water Act, and they're power washing in that city jurisdiction. And let's just say that they have a job on the next city later on in the day, where their guidelines are totally different. Maybe they're more extreme, where that contractor needs to go back to his shop, get whatever equipment he needs to do. That's downtime for us. Is it historically correct for level 2, level 3 municipalities here in the state to kind of follow suit with what the city and county puts out as relates to environmental issues? If someone could talk a little bit about that, and what our contractors can expect, not just with the city of Charlotte or the county, but also the other cities in the state.
Yeah, we can't make our, I'm sure those from our surrounding municipalities will agree, we can't make them agree to what our rules and guidelines are. We're all a little different, but with that said, I think we try to be a leader and we try to do the research. We've been dealing with these issues and these permits a lot longer than some of our surrounding smaller towns, and they may look to us to sort of guide and lead. And with that said, we do have the regional stormwater partnership made up of all the phase 2 communities, and we work together on issues. Right now it's focused on training and education, but my goal is to work with those surrounding towns and say, these are our, this is the feedback we got from business owners, this is what's going on in other municipalities, this is what we think. Let's work on adopting something regionally so that we have some consistency in so you guys aren't like, okay, I'm in Concord, what do I have to do here? When I was just in Charlotte. Does that answer your question?